Hey, welcome back for another Rusty production. Today we're going to work on the anvil. And then when I say anvil, I mean the anvil shaped object that I've been working on. We're going to try and add a horn to it, and we're going to try and add another piece of steel to create a hardy hole. So what I'm going to be doing first is I'll quickly show you what we're working with, and then I'm going to be going down the scrap yard, which is a bit of a drive away, to pick up some pieces of steel so that I can actually start playing with this anvil and seeing what I can do. So as you would have seen in previous videos, this is what I'm working with. This is my anvil shaped object, an old steel die that had 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one in the center, 5. And we cut the eye out of this one and then created this sort of fullering edge. And today we're going to see if we can find some solid steel so that we can actually add a horn, and then potentially try and add a hardy hole type scenario here, and we'll try and weld all that together. Now, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyone who's watched this stuff before knows that I'm a novice at all of this, so we're just trying it out, seeing if it'll work, and if it doesn't, well, it was scrap steel anyway. So I'm here at the junkyard, and I am like a kid in a candy store. Look at all the stuff behind me. There is so much scrap metal here that I can play with. Let me show you what I'm looking at. These are some of the solid pieces that I've found that I'm going to try and make a horn out of this. Actually attach it to the anvil that I have. But look at these solid pieces of steel. So cool. So we're back from the scrapyard. We picked up a couple of these pieces. This is what we're going to be using for the horn. Probably only just a small one about this sort of size. We'll cut a diagonal out of there and then smooth it round. This is around about 7 kilos, so nice solid piece there. What I'm finding is that this scrap that I found is super cheap. If you can find a great cheap scrap place, then they are gold. And I believe I found one down at Hastings on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. But the interesting thing is the consumables costing a bit. So everything from my coke to my coal to my welding rods to even my grinding plates, there's the costs in the consumables. So I'm probably going to go through quite a few grinding plates or discs and cutting discs today, because I know I did when I did the anvil before. So let's see how we go. Put in there. I'm just going to grind off some of this rust so that we can get to a good surface to work on. I've got this flapper wheel for that, just a 40 grit. I'll try not to take off too much of the material because the 40 grit will actually do that. So we're only going to be using the top part, so that's clean enough for now. I'm going to flip it over. So I'm not sure how long I should be making this this horn, but the anvil shaped object, or the anvil that I've got, is only 20 centimeters long, and so I don't think I want to go over 10 centimeters for the horn. So what I'm going to do is just make a few measurements. And look, at the end of the day, if it's a little bit messy, I can always clean it up. I know that's probably not the ideal attitude to go into with this, but that's how I'm going to start. So basically, this is what I'm working with. The taper goes from the start point in here all the way back through to back there, and then we've got an extra bit of metal. I think that's 8 centimeters. Sorry, that's 8 centimeters. 10 centimeters is right here on this mark here. So that's the length of our horn. So the first thing I'm going to do is just literally cut straight down through these pieces here, and that's going to be a bit of a mission in itself before I start trying to round it out at all. This is going to take some time. You don't often see me wearing this apron, but I'm going to be putting this apron on today, I think, because this is going to get sparks all over the front of me, and while these are old clothes, I don't particularly want to burn a hole in them all. So you can see there what I've done to start is score the angle that I want to start cutting this at, and then just score down through the front where I'm going to actually start cutting down. Now this is going to slope in from the top, so the actual point is probably going to be somewhere around there. It'll be a deeper slope in underneath. But I'll just score all the way through here, cut these 2 slices off before I even start working on the underneath. Just because I'm working with a, well, medium-sized grinder, I'm not going to be able to get all the way through the metal cleanly, so I'm going to have to take it off in chunks. Now, last time I did this with the anvil, I overcut, so I cut over the line. Got to be careful not to do that this time, because you then need to ground out all the grooves that you create. So I'll try and undercut, and then and should maybe even knock it out with a hammer, and then just grind it smooth after that. So you'll notice I'm going to start cutting in. So that's about the size chunks we're going to be taking off, bit at a time. I'm expecting this is going to take an hour or so. It's so cute. We're going to be going through quite a few of these today. Alright, so this is where we're up to. You can see, it doesn't look like it necessarily, but I reckon we're about halfway there. This thicker area of material takes a lot more punishment. Speaking of punishment, this one just burnt out. I don't know if it's because it is super cheap, but it was, or whether I didn't look after it correctly. But luckily, I have another right here. It doesn't have a speed setting, but it has fast or off. But it does fit all the blades that I want. I've got another smaller one as well, but this is one I just picked up in the middle of an eBay auction. So this came with about 4 other tools. All of them up. I think it was $20 all up. So I will continue with the smaller one. Yeah, time to change the blade on that one. Alright, so I've got the grinding disc on the grinder now. So I've defined this part here as the top. I've just drawn a line through there because I'm going to cut off there. It's going to become a sharp point, so I'm just going to take some material off the top once that's all done. But I need to use my cutting discs to take all this out here. So rather than trying to clean all this up, I think I'll just cut it all out first. And it's only just going to be a small horn, but it's going to be ideal for making the sort of, or expanding the sort of holes I want to use for it, because I've already got sort of a fuller edge here on the anvil. but on the horn, I want to use this for actually widening holes, sort of rather than using drifts for things like bottle openers and shaping things like that. That's clearly not on there properly because that was sparking. There it is. Look at that. Yeah, it's off center. I think this will make a really good anvil because I'm gonna have to clean that chisel up again. All right, back to it. All right, so the basic shape is there, as you can see. Still needs to be rounder because it's got that square tip on the end there. But it needs to be cleaned up anyway. I've got to take out all these scratches and marks, these deeper sort of cuts, but that's good. I've got plenty, I think, of material I can still get rid of there, and we'll round it out. Won't be to a complete point, but not too far off. The metal itself is very, very warm. It's actually probably where I want to have it to weld, but I won't be welding, I don't think, today, because still a fair bit of work to do on this. But yeah, overall, pretty happy with it. There's a lot of work that's gone into it, and a lot of tools. So I got most of the heavy nicks out of it, and it's pretty much looking the right shape. Fairly happy with it. Just going to go over it with the flapper disc. This is a 40 grit that's been used a little bit, so it's less than 40 now. Just to smooth out some of the edges and give it a final finish. I'm not going to get it down to too high grit because it's going to get knocked around a fair bit anyway, and I'm still going to cut it and then look at welding. So I've ruled actually 12 centimeters now, because I want a little bit extra space rather than the 10, and I've marked pretty much all the way around. There's just a slightly dotted line there. So I'm gonna score it with the angle grinder, and then we'll try cutting through as we turn it. Righto. So it took a bit of effort, but I finally got through with the hacksaw. Oh, sweating. It's quite hot too. So I just got to clean up this flat top here, chamfer the edge, and then we will look to weld. Alright, so I've got it locked in the wood there just so I don't damage the tip. It probably shouldn't damage, but I'm just putting it there anyway. And I'm going to use the grinding disc and just chamfer the edge here, which basically means just bevel it by a few mils, so that when I actually put the weld on, it's going to be right in there in a bit of a groove, rather than actually just being on top. So there's the final horn. Got the beveled edge, so that when we weld it, we can get in the groove there. And there are still some marks on it, but I'm actually going to live with that for now, and I guess once I've actually got it onto there, I can look to get those out as well. So it's mainly a striking edge here, and this area pretty much between here and here where there's no marks at all. That's really what I'm going to be using, because I'm going to be using this a lot for opening up holes rather than anything else. Like I said, with the bottle openers and things like that. Alright, so here we are. We've got this anvil, which I keep forgetting how heavy that is, but I've got it up here. And I've turned it on its side. This piece is going to be going here like so. It's pretty heavy, so it's not going to go anywhere well. I'll have to still put a couple of spots in. I've smoothed this down with the flapper wheel, and I reckon I'm going to leave a square edge up on here because I'm really just using it for the taper, so that might actually be quite useful, just to leave that edge there with the rounded fuller as well. So look, around there I think is pretty spot on. Now, anyone who hasn't seen my channel before, I'm a complete novice at this sort of stuff, and by novice, this is the second month that I've been doing this. So my welds are going to be terrible, and I'm really just trying to do stuff. It's not a case of knowing what I'm really doing, so try and clean that up a bit. Definitely on there. It's basically in the right spot. Now I've just got to see if I can get some good welds on. Alright, so here's our welding. It's really, really bad. Lots of inclusions in it. But I'm going to grind it back and then see if there's any gaps. And then I got the horn welded on there, but I'll show you what has happened. I decided, like, the 2 rounds on the weld, and you can see it's come off. Now, how did it come off? I went to town with the hammer on it because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to come off when I actually am using it. So I beat it pretty hard, but not too hard, I guess, before it started to give way. So Clearly that's not strong enough. I think what I really need to do is grind it all back, put a larger bevel in on the edge of this piece, and then really get the weld in there so that it can really glue those two pieces together, and take my time with it, you know. So I'll come back after I've done that. I'll grind it back. I'll get welding harder, and I'll give it another 1-2 and see if it'll hold. So it's the next day, and I've ground the it's a bit warm still. I've ground all the excess weld off the horn, and you can see I've chamfered it back quite a bit, probably about twice as much as it was last time. And if I was to put the horn down here, you'd be able to see that it's got a lot more of a gap, but I don't think that's enough. I think I'm gonna take it back that again to make sure I've got enough room to really get the weld in under there. The other option I've got is that if this doesn't hold for the second time, I'm thinking of putting a piece of steel sort of dowel in the middle of this, and putting a hole in the center, and then putting a hole through here, and then getting the piece that fits just right. But at the moment I don't have that steel that's going to fit with the drill bits that I've got. So let's try this one first. It's all experimentation, and we'll see how we go. Behold the rough slaggy mess which is my welding. So I've gone around that with a couple of passes. It's horrible looking, and obviously it'll look nicer once I grind it back a bit. I'm just going to go one more pass along the top there, and then maybe one more pass along the bottom, and then we'll smooth it out. And I might try and give it a tap test before we smooth it out, just to make sure I'm not going to waste my time. So it's on there. I really don't want to do this test, because if it breaks, it's going to be so heartbreaking. But I'm going to have to give it a few whacks just to get a sense of whether it's really on there or not. Yeah. All right, let's see how we go. I think that's pretty much held. You can see just parts of the weld are starting to like give slightly, but like overall that's holding. So I've actually got another pass to do on this weld anyway, so I'm just going to do that again. But I'm going to leave this ugly molten look, because it makes this whole thing look like a real meat axe. It looks hardcore, and I'm not going to be using that edge. I wasn't going to be using it as a step or anything like that. So I'll just weld a little bit more around the base there, and I'm going to call that done, because basically I'm just going to be using the point end more than anything else. That's the reason that I've done it. So am I happy? Oh, I think it's touch and go. I reckon this will eventually break one day, but if it does, well, so be it. So that's the end of this video. If you liked what you saw, or you learned something from my mistakes, then please shoot me a like and subscribe for more of these videos. If you've got something to tell me, or if you think that there's something I could have done better, leave a comment below. And until next time, thanks so much for watching.